It is. All right. This is going to be an experiment.
Sound like Rocky.
I'm very sorry for being so sick. Last week, you think this is bad? I had no voice. I was whispering, and this is going to be a challenge. But Happy New Year. This is the first Sunday of the new year, 2019. And I don't know what this year holds. I don't know what we're going to do. But we're just going to bless it anyway. And we're just going to go with whatever God wants this year. I don't set resolutions. I don't have anything in particular in mind for the year, but I just go with whatever the Lord leads me in. So whenever something comes up, we'll go with that. So I know it's been a little while. We're going to get back into our Mark story here. And if you kind of remember the last time we met, we talked about how Jesus fed the 4,000. He did a little teaching, and he healed the blind man. We talked about that double touch, okay? That was a big deal, the double touch, the disciples. And so we're going to read the next part. This is the end of the chapter, and then we'll go through it. And that is going to be a reoccurring thing here, okay, about the stages of development, all right? So, Mark 8:27, it says, Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others one of the prophets." "What about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. He then began to teach them, "The Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, chief priests, teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again." He spoke plainly about this. Peter took him aside, began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned, looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me, for the gospel, will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me, my words, in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory, the holy angels." All right, let's pray. Lord, I thank you that even with a very minimal voice, you're still going to proclaim your word. But Lord, I need some help, and I need some strength right now. So Lord, bestow that on me. Thank you for these people, God. Lord, bless them. Lord, help them to understand what it is you're trying to reach with them today. And Lord, I thank you that even in sickness, God, Lord, you still do work. You still manifest. And Lord, that in my weakness, you're strong. That despite me, you're still on the throne. You're still powerful. You're still almighty and moving. Thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so Jesus heals the blind man. Okay, he does the 2 touches, right? And then he moves 25 miles away. Okay, now Jesus doesn't enter the city. He goes to the villages. Now, kind of have to picture what that's like. You have a city, bigger city or town, and then it has usually like a wall around it. Okay, the important people live inside. Then there's like little villages on the outside, and they kind of rely on the city for commerce and things like that. They're a little quieter, okay? And Jesus, and it's been some chapters now, Jesus is just trying to get some rest. Jesus is tired. Everywhere he goes, something comes up, right? So he finally gets away, right? And Jesus goes into these Gentile areas just to get a break, right? And so while he's there, okay, he asked a question. Who do people say I am? Okay? And why is he asking this? It's kind of a random question. Remember, disciples are not that bright, and they learn very slow, and they learn in stages. This is just the next stage for them. And he's trying to get a confession of faith out of them, right? Now, to see the real Messiah, you have to see him as God's Messiah, not a human Messiah, right? This is the reason why when they say he's the Messiah, Jesus starts to teach. He talks about his death and all he has to suffer, right? So what's Jesus doing here? He's got to open spiritually blind eyes, just like he opened the eyes of the physically blind. His disciples are only sort of getting it, right? So he's on the next stage of their development. And then asking them the question, they give all the popular answers, right? John the Baptist, Elijah, some prophet that usually is linked to Moses. They give all the popular answers of the day, but none are adequate. Jesus is none of those things. What's interesting, though, is they all see Jesus as a spokesman for God, prophet, somebody of some power, okay? That's still not enough. But that's a radical idea because in this day and age, people thought that the prophets were done, okay? People thought that we're never going to get another Elijah. We're never going to get another Daniel, Jeremiah. Those guys are gone. They're long gone. God doesn't talk to us that way no more. So to link Jesus with them, that's a radical idea, but it's still not enough, okay? The other thing that's interesting here, too, is that no one says outright via what the people think that he's the Messiah. Now, there's been a lot of Messiah fever, a lot of people, and there's been some incidences where they could have taken Jesus, tried to force him to do their will as their Messiah. But they don't say it. And this kind of heightens the tension in the exchange, right? So there's all these popular ideas about Jesus. Then Jesus kind of pinpoints the question a little deeper, right? He says, but who do you say? See, these guys knew Jesus best. And he's asking, you guys that have been around me for so long, you guys that know me better than anybody else, who do you say I am? And this is a question we all have to really ask ourselves at some point in time. We're going to come to a place where you have to look at Jesus. You have to make a decision. You have to say, who is this Jesus? What is this really? What does he mean? Who is he really? Right? Now, Peter, every preacher sees a little of themselves in Peter. Because Peter is a guy who's like the leader. He stands among the group. He's the spokesman. But then Peter is really good at making these big faith statements and doing these great things. And at other times, Peter really stupid. He puts his foot in his mouth. Okay? And so it's kind of like that rise and fall thing. We really kind of relate to him. You know, I kind of find it funny because a lot of preachers when talk to each other, we all see kind of Peter, right? But then there's some guys and they don't see them. They think they're Paul. And Paul never has like downfall moments. He's like perfect. So when those guys talk, we're just like, okay, yeah. Perfect guy over here. Anyway, so Peter stands up and Peter speaks for the group. And he says, well, you're the Messiah, right? So let's talk about what that means real quick. I don't want to get too deep into all the theology of Messiah and all that, but simply put, okay, Messiah, the Hebrew word, it's the same word for Christ. So when we say Jesus Christ, it's like saying Jesus the Messiah, okay? Christ comes from Greek, and change it to English, and that word means the anointed one, God's anointed one. There's a lot of stuff that comes with that, though, okay? The idea behind it is that not only is this a earthly king type person, a ruler, the Old Testament kind of puts some divine qualities to it. And it's a lot of uncertainness with the people about what it means. But see, only Jesus, being the Messiah, can reveal what it really means, right? So we see Peter has some understanding of who Jesus is, but it isn't perfect, okay? It's not perfect. And we read why, okay? He gets a little hot, right? But he's getting something. So we're seeing that the disciples, they're getting kind of this understanding of Jesus in stages, right? So Jesus, being Jesus, does the Jesus thing, and he says, don't tell anybody, right? Now this time it's a little different though, okay? His warning is very harsh, okay? His warning in the words, very similar to how when Jesus just deals with demons to silence them, okay? He doesn't want them being too open about this yet. Well, why? Well, he knows they need more teaching on the subject. They're not all the way there yet. Peter and the rest of the gang, they don't understand what it means to be a Messiah just yet. So what does Jesus do? Well, in this next part, he begins to teach them. And right away, he teaches them what Messiahship really means. And he starts talking about how he's going to suffer and die and all these things that come with it. Now notice, Jesus doesn't use the term Messiah for himself. He uses Son of Man. Now that doesn't mean that Jesus doesn't believe he's a Messiah, doesn't know he's a Messiah. But the idea of Messiah has too many connotations in their mind. See, they're still looking for that human Messiah. They're looking for that guy on the horse with the sword, is going to overthrow the Romans, is going to fix all the Jewish problems, is going to overtake the throne of David, is going to be this political mover and shaker. Jesus can't use those words because that's what they understand. So he has to use something different. He has to use something a little more cryptic, right? Son of Man is his favorite phrase of Jesus. It refers back to Daniel, the Son of Man who comes up before the Ancient of Days, the God in heaven, and he's seated. He's given his power and dominion. He's this figure who just people don't get. They have a hard time understanding what that means. And that's what Jesus uses of himself, that term. And Jesus is so interesting here what he says. He names three groups that are going to have a hard time with him. He says the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law. Those groups make up the Sanhedrin, or the Jewish high court. We haven't seen those guys yet in the story. Mostly Jesus been dealing with Pharisees. Pharisees is like another political group. They believe things a little different theologically. There's some Pharisees in the Sanhedrin, but those guys are more on the outskirts, right? The Jewish Center for Law and Justice and Living comes from the Sanhedrin. Okay? And right here, verse 31, he began to teach them, the Son of Man must suffer many things, to be rejected, and doesn't by whom, that he must be killed, after 3 days rise again. This is the only place in Mark where the Messianic secret is fully explained. Jesus is the one doing it. Jesus is saying, this is what it means to be Messiah. This is it. There's no parables. There's no riddles. There's nothing hidden. It's straight out there. This is what it's going to look like. As a Messiah, the main guys are going to reject me and they're going to kill me, but I'm going to rise again. I wonder, though, how many of them actually got it. Probably none of them. But Jesus is speaking plainly for the first time almost. Now, plainly means with boldness or openness about what's going to happen to you, right? Now, remember, they have in their mind a Messiah of a different look. This Messiah looks weak. This Messiah is somebody that's going to be put down, killed. Peter can't handle that. Peter gets a little lippy. So, Peter being Peter, who just had this great confession, Jesus, you are the Messiah, right? And then he takes Jesus aside, and they're like, I can't believe you're saying this. And rebukes Jesus. Now, let me warn you, don't be that person that rebukes Jesus, because you're going to look dumb. It doesn't work. He's too far ahead of you, right? Peter's Messiah is a human political one, not God's Christ. That's what Jesus is trying to show here, right? And Peter, he's this guy, gave this great confession. Now he's rebuking. That shows the mind of Peter. Peter, he's still learning. He hasn't gotten there yet. He fails to understand the necessity of the cross. No one gets it. No one gets it until the end. But see, there is a necessity for that cross. Now, Jesus being Jesus, then this shows really kind of the Father's heart in Jesus. Okay? He looks at all the disciples. Then he rebukes Peter. See, it was for all of them. It was harsh, right? It's kind of like, I remember, I'm not a parent, but as a kid, if one was in trouble, everybody was in trouble. If my brother was in trouble, I was in trouble. If I was in trouble, my brother was in trouble. You go down together, right? So Peter, being the spokesperson for the 12, Peter, you're in trouble. And he looks at all of them like, you're all part of this too, right? And so he tells them, get behind me, Satan. That's harsh. Jesus is calling this dude who's his friend Satan, right? Now, get behind. What does that mean? Basically trying to say, Peter, get back in your place. You're trying to take a position that's not yours. Go back to your place. Let me be the one in charge. I do the rebuking. You go behind. And Peter is trying to do exactly what Satan tried to get Jesus to do in the wilderness. Remember, Satan tried to get Jesus to do the easy way. Just bow. Just give up. I'll give it to you. You don't need the cross. You don't need the suffering. Peter's telling him the same thing. You don't need this. You don't need to be this weak Messiah. Be the Messiah everybody wants you to be. Peter, she's got to tell him, Peter, know your role. Get back. Know your role and shut your mouth. Get back. Right? Now, Peter and Satan are not the same. Okay? Peter is just acting like his spokesman instead of God's. See, Peter's a powerful dude. He doesn't even know it yet. Peter's words hold weight. He doesn't even know it yet. He's supposed to be spokesman for the Lord, not Satan's. That's how he's acting. And he's speaking out of a natural mind, not the spirit illuminated mind. Okay? Jesus is always on that divine level. He's always thinking God's way. And God's way is the cross. So that's his focus. But think about this for a second. The devil's way is pretty easy. It requires no suffering, nothing harsh, nothing bad. Just take over. Just do it. And it would have been easy. But that's not God's way. That's not God's way for Jesus. Right? That's not God's way for us. Sometimes an easy, natural way. It's not the way that God wants for us. Right? So now, having rebuked them, Jesus opens it up to the crowds. He needs them all to know what following him really looks like. Okay? He tells them two things got to be done. First, you have to deny yourself. What does that mean? It means you can't be the center of your life anymore. It's not about you. Okay? There's something bigger and greater for you to be striving after than just what you want. Right? The other thing, he says, take up your cross and follow him. What does that mean? Well, it means to literally be ready to face scorn and death for him. If it comes time for that, you got to be ready. Now, to carry the cross, they didn't carry the whole cross. You know, you see a lot of pictures of Jesus, and he's got like the whole cross on his shoulder. It's not really how they did it. What they would do is they would give him the beam, top beam. They'd put it on their shoulders and make them walk with that. And while they walked, okay, now the Romans, they didn't invent crucifixion, but they perfected it, okay? They loved to crucify people. Crucifixion is like for the lowest criminals. Roman citizens are not even allowed to be crucified. That's why when Paul dies, cut off his head. He's a Roman citizen. They don't crucify him. Anyway, they're good at this, right? So they put the beam on him and they walk him through, and people throw stuff at him. They spit at him. They jeer, and they're ridiculed. They're mocked as they're going to die, right? Now, to carry the cross means you got to be ready at all times to face the humiliation that comes with following Jesus. It's going to be humiliating sometimes in life. The other thing, too, is that when the Romans put that beam on you, it showed that they had authority over that criminal. They had authority to execute them. But see, when we take Christ's cross and we carry his cross and we follow him in life, it shows that his authority is over us. We're under his authority now, right? So it's no longer about you. It's about him. You're no longer the center of your life. You're no longer the center of attention. He is. And you follow him everywhere he goes, right? Now, Jesus says, whoever wants to save their life will lose it. What's he talking about? People will do everything and anything they can to try to save physical life. Okay? But it doesn't work that way. You can't make it last any longer. Right? And your soul, according to Jesus, is worth more than the whole world. And it can't be exchanged for anything of value. So what's he saying here? You could own everything. You could have the entire world. But there's going to be a time that comes when your soul is going to be asked of you. You will not be able to buy your way out of it. You will not be able to fix your way out of it. It's either you do it my way, follow me, come under my authority, deny yourself, or nothing. There's nothing that you can do. Nothing. I'm the only way. That's the cost of following me. It's either you're all in or there's no way that you can buy yourself in. Right? And Jesus uses very specific language here. It says save, gain, forfeit. That's all commercial money language. Okay? Essentially what he's trying to tell them is that the kingdom is a good buy. When you buy into what I'm doing, when you give into what I'm doing, when you forfeit the old stuff, come to this new stuff, that's the good thing. Right? In the last verse here, says something very interesting. Okay? He says to be ashamed. If anybody is ashamed of me and my word, okay? To be ashamed of Jesus and his word has consequences. Okay? Now, why? Well, it puts you in the same position, same situation as his enemies, and the same shame that they'll face, you'll face. Now, remember, Jesus is the Messiah, but he does it God's way. These people think the Messiah is this guy who's going to bring judgment. They're right. He's just not going to bring it when they think he is or how. He does it his own way. And he's talking about in the end, he's going to come in glory with the angels. There's going to be a judgment then. That's when the judgment happens. Not now. Not the way you want it. It's how he wants it. Okay? Quickly, this word ashamed. To be ashamed is like, in this context, it's almost like you're too proud to care. It's like you see Jesus and you see his word, and you just don't care to be tangled up in it. But the word that Jesus is using here, some connotation to it, and it means something like disfigured. His word, something about it disfigures you. It does something to you. And he says, if it does something to you so horrible, what do you think is going to happen to me? You made this ugly thing out of my word. What do you think is going to happen in the end? I'm going to be disfigured. That's what he's talking about here. So to be ashamed, cannot be ashamed of Jesus and his word, right? So let's end with this here. Have you ever put your foot in your mouth? I have, plenty of times. In fact, I think sometimes that's the only way that I learned is by having to pull my foot out of my mouth. So I'm getting older, and it's getting harder to get my leg out of my mouth. Sometimes I don't move as well as I used to. Have you ever overstepped your place? Been in a situation where you try to step up and you realize, I'm out of my league, right? Have you ever had to have something explained more than once to understand. I know I have. Right? Have you ever been ashamed? And more so, have you ever been ashamed of Jesus? Have you ever been ashamed of his word? Has it ever made you cringe because it doesn't look like, it doesn't feel like, it doesn't act like the rest of the world around you? Because it makes you not fit in. If yes, you're okay. There's hope. Peter and the disciples constantly putting their foot in their mouth. Peter is constantly overstepping his place. The disciples are having to have Jesus explain over and over. And you know something? These disciples give him a hard time. But you got to remember, these are simple guys from a simpler time. They're uneducated. And here I am, got all kinds of years of learning, experience, degrees, and I still don't understand. I still got to learn. I still have to have the Lord tell me things more than once, and twice, and 3, and 10, and 100 times. Right? These guys are going to come to a place where they're going to be ashamed of Jesus, and they're going to run away. You know the story. It's okay. There's a coming back. So the real question is, are we ready to follow the real Jesus? Not the man-made Jesus. Not the Jesus that we set in our mind. Not the Jesus who we want him to be. God's Christ. God's final word in a rebellious world. Are we ready to follow that Jesus? Jesus says, deny yourself and take up his cross, come under his authority. Are we ready for that Jesus? Because that's what all this is for. Everything that we do is to present that real Jesus and to say, are you ready for him? Right? That's what this is about. The stages, the double touch, all of that stuff. It's about having our eyes open to who that real Jesus is. When you get a glimpse, a taste of who the real Jesus is, there will always be more to understand. There will always be more to learn. There will always be more to grasp. But know you have his fullness. You just have to open your eyes little by little by little over time. And there will always be more majesty, always more grandeur. Right? So let's pray and we'll take communion. But I want you guys focus on, am I following the real Jesus? Is the Jesus that I love, the Jesus that I worship, the Jesus that I serve, is this the real Jesus? So a lot of people out there talking about Jesus. There's a lot of people knocking on doors talking about, have you met Jesus? That's not always the right Jesus. It's not always the real Jesus. Lord, we want the real Jesus. We want to follow the real Jesus. Come under the authority of the true Jesus, the one who had to suffer, the one that had to die, the one that rose again, the one that sent his spirit. That's the Jesus that we want. And Lord, we're going to follow that Jesus today. And we're going to follow that Jesus forever. And we're going to lead people to that Jesus. And we're going to lead our families to that Jesus. The real Jesus. The Jesus that doesn't make sense sometimes. The Jesus that looks weak. The Jesus that sometimes you got to get humiliated for. But you know what? It don't matter because he's real. He's alive. Everything else pales in comparison. Everything else is fake compared to him. And Lord, we love you. We thank you for what you did. We remember you today. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so starting the year. We're going to take away communion. This is the perfect opportunity, after what we just talked about, to remember what Jesus did. See, Jesus did something that looked so weak, so out of the ordinary, but it had to be done. And by his weakness, we are strengthened in that. They're given so much out of that. So I'm going to pass this. And then take it all together. Huh? All right. Scripture says here, "For I receive from the Lord, I also pass on to you. The Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread. He had given thanks. He broke it and said, 'This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' Lord, your broken body is for our healing. Your broken body, God, set us free. Lord, in that weak moment, Lord, where you were at your most vulnerable, God, you stepped into our place. You took on everything it meant to be a man, and it was broken. And Lord, it's just so amazing that you did that for us. We thank you for that. We remember your sacrifice. In Jesus' name, let's eat. It says, in the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me.' Lord, we remember you. We remember that your blood was spilled, that your blood covered the mercy seat for us. Lord, there's nothing we can do to repay you, but Lord, we will remember you. We will thank you. Lord, your blood reconciled us to the Father. Your blood set us who are captives free. Lord, it destroyed sin once and for all. And Lord, by that blood, we are new creations. The old has passed, the new has come. We are new and alive in you. And we thank you. You did that for us. In Jesus' name. Amen. Lord Jesus, bless these people. Let them remember who you are and follow the real you. Bless them. Give them your boldness to speak openly about who the real Jesus is. Bless them. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I can stop talking. Made it.